Come seeker, come traveler, come all humankind, online or in person, whomever you love.
Come and be welcome at the Unitarian Universalist Church of Cheyenne. Here, we are building a community of refuge where all have equal worth and are invited into spiritual exploration as a foundation for hope, compassionate service, and action.
This is a place where questions are encouraged, a place with room for all of who you are.
This is a place full of works in progress, a place for being human together.
Welcome. It is good to be here.
Settle in and exhale. This is a time for community.
Good morning. I'm Brigitte Paul, a member of the board, here to welcome you to this church where we are on a shared journey to find meaning, connection, and community together. If you are new to us, please fill out a welcome card and drop it in the offering basket so we can share information about our activities and help find what nourishes your spirit here. There are note cards in your pew for writing your joys and sorrows for the pastoral prayer. We pass a square basket during the offering to gather these. Write your name or remain anonymous. You can write "do not share" on the card if there's something you want held in care by our minister and pastoral care team, but not spoken aloud. Many activities and events happen each week in this community. Here are a few coming up soon. You guys probably saw this inside your order of service. You should have received a reading tracker in your order of service today. We'd like to encourage you to join our Jet Pig Summer Reading Program. More information about this event can be found in the announcements section of your order of service insert. More tracking sheets for your reading journeys are available by the front door of the church if multiple people in your family would like to join the fun. Everyone who joins the reading program will receive a bookmark reward and be entered in a drawing for a Jet Pig mug upon finishing. Please contact our administrator, Jed, if you have any questions or want more information. Speaking of Jed, he will be starting up a UU Christian book club this September. If you're interested in exploring Christianity and the Bible as it relates to our UU values, please contact Jed for more information or sign up on the sheet in the foyer. You only need an interest to join. You don't have to have any specific beliefs. The other thing I wanted to say before I left this area was the garage sale finished up yesterday. We start on Thursday nights taking everything off the stage. It takes a couple hours, and then it takes about 5 or 6 hours on Friday to set everything up. And then the sale happens on Saturday, and then you have to take donations to the places, the things that didn't sell. But there was about $1,600 to $1,700 made yesterday from the garage sale. So that was awesome. And I think it was 2 truckloads and 2 SUVs that ended up being taken to Goodwill. So it's something that was super helpful if you can come help set up or take off the stage. And lots of you donated stuff because the stage was full once again. Thank you.
Good morning. I'm Julianne, and I'm on the Share the Plate Committee. And this month, we are honoring Pride Cheyenne. So they want to thank us for our continued support. Your community here at the UUCC has been a source of strength and encouragement for us, and we are deeply grateful. Pride Cheyenne began as a quiet conversation between 2 friends in 2022. Friends who recognize the need for visibility, connection, and celebration for LGBTQ people right here in Laramie County. excuse me, what started as a simple idea has grown into a community-wide movement. Since becoming an official nonprofit in 2023, our work has continued on building spaces where LGBTQ individuals, families, and allies can feel safe, seen, and supported. Our cornerstone event is the Pride Cheyenne Street Fest, which just completed its third year, reaching more than 1,800 individuals. It's the largest LGBTQ gathering in our community and is designed with families in mind. As we work to offer more than that, from hikes and theater outings to karaoke nights and community outreach, we work to offer a safe, welcoming space for our community. With the public support of faith communities like this, we're showing the broader region what it looks like to celebrate love, inclusion, and belonging. As an all-volunteer organization, every dollar we receive goes directly back into creating these events and resources for the community. We don't operate with overhead or staff, just with a heart. So your generosity is truly helping the people that need it most. And if you ever have any questions or ideas, we're always eager to connect. Thank you again for being part of this work and for your extraordinary support this month and throughout the year. You remind us all what true allyship looks like. Thank you.
And so, as we gather and share our abundance with our community organization, Pride Cheyenne, you can find the text to give number in your order of service, use your Realm app for electronic giving, or your Share the Plate offerings and pledges may also be dropped in the baskets as they pass. We thank you for your generosity. And once again, with a microphone, we receive this morning's offering with deep gratitude. Nothing seems so awful today. The birds sing, the grass is green, yet somewhere in this world, people are creating hell for one another upon the land that could be heavenly if we would only take the time to see one another as human. Here, there is cause for hope or despair, for fear or joy in the complexity of living our lives amidst what seems like the ashes of what once was a democracy, what yet might be if we have the strength to meet this moment with determination and commitment to compassionate resistance. Even so, it's hard to say what the generations to come will make of this moment when we built camps in the swamps, made arrangements to lock up or ship out our neighbors for profit, allied law and order against the cause of empathy. It is hard to make sense of it all, hard not to slip into the abyss, to weep for the lost. So we come back to this place, to see what can be found, to be with others, to rejoin the forces of hope if we can, to take one more try to rebuild the beloved community. And so for our opening hymn today, I invite you to turn in your gray hymnals as you rise in body or in spirit to number 347 as we sing together, Gather the Spirit. And we thank our hymn leaders for coming to help us with our singing today.
Our chalice lighting is Soul Fire by Anastasia Birosh. As we light this flame of hope, may our congregation become a kaleidoscope of souls and people. In the presence of this flame, in me, in you, in us, is an invitation to sit at the table. May we tend our soul fire through these challenging and trying times to open the hearts and minds of all who enter our doors. If the young or the young at heart wish to join us on the chancel at this time, we invite you to share the leadership of speaking our covenant in unison before the time for all ages. The words to your covenant may be found in the inside of your order of service.
And so, move on up and we will begin. Love is the spirit of this church, and service is God's. This is our covenant, to dwell together in peace, to seek truth, and to help others. Does that sound like I have a mic now? All right, I'm going to keep that out so I can see if it turns itself off again. So, this story is an adaptation of a story that was once told by Aesop. Aesop wrote a lot of things called fables, which are short stories that tell you something about life. Oh, and that looks like it's blinking at us. So maybe we need either new batteries or we could steal that microphone. Thank you, Audrey. Because, boy, it's not as fun. Not as fun to hear a story if you can't hear the story. So let's try it this way. I'm so glad that we have folks to hold our frogs because I've got a lot of things in my hands. So, this story from Aesop is about, originally, the story was about two frogs who each were just out for themselves. This retelling is a little more in line with our Unitarian Universalist tradition. For once upon a time, there were two frogs, and those frogs were hopping along one day down the road when they came across a farm. And on that farm, there were some cows, and therefore there was a churn. A churn is where you put milk before it gets churned up and turned into butter. This story has two frogs. Sometimes there are different numbers of frogs, and that's okay. So, those frogs had turned off of the road. They saw that churn, and not knowing what was inside, they thought it might make a nice, dark, quiet place to stop for the night and rest. And so, the two frogs, hop, hop, jumped right into that churn and went splash. That churn was full of milk, and they knew they had made a mistake. They tried to hop to the edge, swimming and swimming, but it was slick with milk, and they couldn't get a place to reach the top. And so there they were, swimming and swimming and swimming. One frog said to the other, "We may drown in all this milk, for I am tired." And the second frog said, "Well, if you're tired, take a rest for a few minutes and hold on to me, and I'll kick for the both of us." And so the second frog kicked and kicked and kicked, and by the time the second frog was too tired to kick anymore, the first frog said, "That's all right. I could kick for a while." And they switched places, one swimming and then the other, back and forth, while the other held on and rested. And after a time, That kicking produced bubbles and froth. The milk began to separate and grow more watery with little lumps in it. And after a while, oh, it didn't go bad. Your second guess is right on. Zane said, either the milk's going bad or it's turning into butter. It was. The fat was beginning to separate and float to the top. And pretty soon, they had a little butter patty, almost like a lily pad at the top. And the two frogs climbed on top and settled down and were able to rest. Just like somebody else is doing. And so, in the morning, when the farmer looked inside the butter churn, the butter was all churned, and the frogs, well rested, hopped out and on down the road for new adventures. And so it was. And so it shall be.
Hi, Carmen.
So, the way that Aesop set up his fables, there was always a moral at the end of the story, a single sentence that would tell you what it was all about. But we are Unitarian Universalists. And so, we get to decide, what do we think might be a good moral for this story? Yeah?
You have to wait before you actually can leave where you want to be.
So maybe you have to wait and be patient to get where you want to go?
Mhm.
Or hard work pays off? Teamwork, plain and simple. Yeah. As Unitarian Universalists, we are encouraged to look for our morals in the stories we tell, to wonder about them. And often, you're right, often the moral is love. We get more done together than we can alone. Either of those frogs all by themselves might not have made it, kicking and kicking until the butter was churned, but together, taking turns and helping each other in love, they got things done. Thank you all so much for being part of this story. Thank you to our frog helpers. And if you would like to head back to your seats or into the nursery to get more space for crafting, you are welcome. And so it was, and so it is. We get more done with love than we might alone. And so we turn to the time in our service where we take a moment for prayer, for meditation, for contemplation with one another. Take a moment to breathe. Spirit of life, Spirit of love, we gather to be with one another. In this time, we support one another, hoping to be a comfort in hard times, to celebrate our joyful and happy moments, to dwell together in the wonder and the mystery of this magnificent, ever-changing life. Today, we offer prayers for healing, prayers for safe travels. From Zane, we offer continued prayers and thoughts of healing for both mental and physical needs for Andy B. We offer gratitude for for all those who helped, who gave, who shopped, who were part of our garage sale experience this week. We offer our gratitude for all that is good in this world, for the green and growing things, even as hailstorms pass, that life endures, and what is growing will come back. We offer our compassion and our love to those affected by the flooding, the flash floods down in Texas. We offer our care, our hopes for justice, for those swept up in immigration raids, for those interned in the camp in Florida. We hope that justice will prevail, that many will be freed. And may we acknowledge in this time of the growing season, the heat, such a change from our Wyoming winters, and that this earth is always in flux. For the joys as yet unshared, the sorrows too tender to speak aloud, all that is changing and in transition in our own lives and in the world. May we offer to them this space of peace and comfort and community which enfolds us. Amen.
Today's sacred message is Here at the End of the World by Joan Sutherland. The United Nations says that 1 million species could go extinct in the coming decades. What will that look like coming across our newsfeed? Imagine that the extinctions are announced one by one as they occur. How many alerts per day will that be? We're entering a time of unimaginable losses, including the possible end of human life on Earth. If we hope to change this, we have to reckon with the fact that whatever we're doing now isn't working, since we're still headed for the cliff, and something is preventing most people from engaging with the emergency despite all the warnings. It's possible that an important part of that something is a fear, conscious or unconscious, of the sorrow to come. How will we bear this grief? And won't grieving make it harder for us to act? But I'm wondering if it is not grief that weakens us, but all we do to avoid it. Perhaps we need instead to include it. Grieving won't keep us from acting, but it will change how we do so in ways that make a great difference. Grief is a Buddha. Grief has strengths that are different from anger's, as water is different from fire. Many contemporary cultures tend to valorize what some consider masculine traits over what some consider feminine ones, which means fiery virtues over watery, outrage over sorrow, assertiveness over receptivity. Is grief seen as feminine? Does it feminize us to feel it? And is that one of the reasons some are afraid of it? Anger tends to feel for. I don't like what's happening to you and I want to change it. While sorrow tends to feel with. Your pain is my pain and I care about it. Feeling for and feeling with complement each other. If we valued both, we'd be able to employ fire or water according to need. They could temper each other and combine in an as yet unimagined and powerful way. Each of us would be able to draw on more of ourselves in response to the crisis. Each of us would have more with which to strengthen and console ourselves. We see the results of fiery action all around us, for good and for ill. I'm wondering if at least some of the burning rage so characteristic of our time is actually a defense against grief. I'm wondering if free-floating, unacknowledged sorrow is a larger influence in our communal life than we give it credit for. If that's true, perhaps we should spend some time with sorrow and grief and mourning here at the end of the world.
A poem it's called Lament by David Breeden. We cry out in grief at the suffering we see, people, all living things, the planet, preventable suffering, yet it continues on and on. When we feel overwhelmed, we gather to find a path, to find new ways forward. When we feel overwhelmed, we know that to our right and to our left, the faces of caring, the faces of companionship, joining us together, we find our refuge, we find our strength, and we find our wisdom, and we find our way forward.
There are so many potential causes for grief in the world as it is today. As we have noted, We might choose the terror being caused to our immigrant neighbors, the impact of climate change on our plant and animal communities. We might look at war in Ukraine or genocide of Palestinians in Gaza. Perhaps there is a loss of dignity and compassion in our own government that grieves you. Perhaps it is something closer to home, loss of relatives, to conspiracy theories of QAnon or the radical right, or perhaps the everyday grief, those cycles of life that result in true loss, parents, grandparents, friends. Whatever your particular flavor, the losses that we find in the state of the world are the kind of grief that tends to settle into anger or be converted toward disgust. The irate, compassionless rejection of those we see as at fault for the current state of things is hard to avoid when there is the grief of anger, the grief of what is wrong in the world. And anger feels more powerful than sadness. Those what are often called masculine emotions, it draws us into its embrace, asks us to channel heat, vibrant unhappiness, to unleash and vent like volcanoes at those who have wronged us. It asks us to be full with the pressure of what is bad. But instead, today we think of what might happen if we settled with our grief, with the heaviness, and then allowed it to bring us back to life, not scorching the earth with our anger, but watering the ground with our tears and replanting what can be saved and rebuilt. It is hard to lose people, to lose what you knew to be true and right. During the COVID pandemic, I know one of the hardest things for me was not the isolation of being in my home, but the isolation of somehow knowing that what I had thought was a common commitment to health, to the well-being of one another, to compassion as a society, was dissipating and evaporating before my eyes, or maybe it had never been. That loneliness of feeling that those around me were no longer trustworthy to have similar values to myself, that was the loneliness I grieved most. And during that time, I found myself sometimes in a fog, sometimes angry, sometimes so upset, just off balance in every way. All of these are normal responses to grief. Therapy books tell you there are 5 stages. There's denial and anger, bargaining, depression, acceptance, neatly arrayed. But anyone who has been in grief knows these show up in any order, at any time in the process, sometimes more than once, and usually not so neatly, one after the other. Grief at the loss of a person is a process that we see often as part of the cycle of life. But it's sometimes harder when that loss is unexpected. It's much harder when the loss, the grief we are experiencing, is around not the expected cycles of life, but the loss of community or of people near to us who are still there but unreachable, still there but trapped in such a disconnect of information and values that we cannot seem to find a common bond. The grief of watching the world tear at itself is a whole other level. And I'm not sure we know or have great tools in our modern daily life for how to handle that kind of grief. But I know it's worth talking about, and I know it's worth trying. And I'm not sure it's so far away as we might think. Because for years, eons, generations, people have been trying to deal with what life throws at them, whether volcanoes or droughts, famines, floods. The terror of the unknown has always been a part of human existence. Joanna Macy, a climate activist who is currently in her final days on hospice care, says whatever grief you are feeling, it matters that you are feeling. For she writes, the refusal to feel takes a heavy toll. Not only is there an impoverishment of our emotional and sensory life, but flowers are dimmer and less fragrant. Our loves less ecstatic. This psychic numbing also impedes our capacity to process and respond to information. The energy expended in pushing down despair is diverted from more creative uses, depleting the resilience and imagination needed for fresh visions and strategies. Joan Sutherland, the Buddhist practitioner we heard from earlier, writing of grief, writing of the overwhelm she feels in the face of climate change and the loss of species, notes that the roots of both the word grief and the Latin gravid, meaning pregnant, share a common root. They are states of fullness, heaviness. They are also states of possibility. In pregnancy, the possibility of a new life. In grief, too, the possibility of coming through, newly aware of a deeper sense of understanding and compassion for others, for ourselves, a new knowing of the ways in which those around us might also be silently dealing with the heaviness of our lives in so many different ways. So while grief is real, we must consider what it looks like to be present to grief and feel the heaviness of what is hard, and then use that in community as part of our shared work, to be present with one another. Macy also writes that the biggest gift you can give is to be absolutely present. She says, when you're worrying about whether you're hopeful or hopeless or pessimistic or optimistic, who cares? The main thing is that you're showing up, that you're here, and you're finding ever more capacity to love this world, because it will not be healed without that. That was what was going to unleash our intelligence, our ingenuity, and our solidarity for the healing of our world. Because for thousands of years, humans have been showing up in a world where things happen that are unexplained and terrifying. And then we write stories about it, stories that help us get through, stories about two frogs in a butter churn, or stories about the rainbow that comes after a flood, like in the story of Noah that we heard last week with the ark, the flood. Most scientists now think that there was, in fact, some kind of massive flooding in that region, that story of Noah and the flood was because perhaps in that moment when the Mediterranean Sea had been a closed and dry place and cracked open, that floodwaters rose 2, 3, 4 yards per day, high enough that you couldn't stop to rest, that you had to flee and flee and flee some more in order to find a place that was dry. And so in that time, people made myth. Perhaps a terrible thing has happened, yet with a rainbow, God promises that it won't be so terrible in the future. This will not come again. The rains may pour, but the sun will come back out. And for us, as a people of covenant, we do for one another in building the beloved community. Perhaps bad things will happen, but you can call us and we'll show up with a casserole. You can call us and let us know that you need help, and what we can give, we will. And it matters that we show up, that we show up to be present with ourselves in the reality of our feelings, that we share with one another what is happening for us, that we find our gratitude, even amidst grief, for what we may be taught about compassion and about what's important in our lives, that we notice who does show up for us and know that we are loved, that we take our grief as a call to be more strongly tied to community, to accept help and practice gracefully receiving the gifts of compassion from others. Many of us here are used to being the helpers. Accepting help as well is a learning, is worth doing. And amidst grief, amidst anger, that we come back, not bypassing, but moving through it to find joy. When we lose a parent or a loved one, there is often joy in sharing the stories of what was good, of what memories we have, of the meaning behind what we hold on to and what we choose to give away, of sharing compassionately with those who have also had such losses, knowing that there is no fixing, but that together we might lessen one another's burdens and share in what is good to remember, and rebuild from there, taking our learning as things we might teach to our children, to the youth around us, to those who we are with. And so, in this month, when our theme is finding joy, may we find even amidst our grief that with one another, building together, we might find the good once more. For as Wayne Arneson, another Unitarian Universalist minister, once said, "Take courage, friends. The way is often hard. The path, never clear, and the stakes are very high. But take courage, for deep down there is another truth. You are not alone. That, at its core, is what Unitarian Universalism is about. For with love at the center, we can find our way back to joy, back to love, back to one another in community. May it be so. And may we rise in body or in spirit, find our sung response in our teal hymnal. It's number 1015, I Know I Can. And we give thanks for our hymn leaders who help us to sing with courage and with gusto.
Please remain standing as we extinguish our chalice flame. Speak together the words in our order of service. We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of the humility, or the fire of commitment. These we carry within our hearts until we are together again.
And so, as we go forth from this place, whatever griefs trouble you, may you know that you are not alone, that you will be held in the times when you need rest, that you have enough strength to be part of this community that offers help when others need rest as well. Blessed be, and be a caring, compassionate source of strength for one another this day and in the weeks to come. Amen.